So I genuinely think Massive is trolling the community right now. I genuinely think that these gear sets are just a big inside joke that we as the community members may or may not see, and call me conspiracy theorist, but I logged on to the Division 1 today. I reinstalled it. I took the time, I reinstalled it. My wife was looking at me like, "What are you doing? I thought you weren't going to touch that game for a while." And I reinstalled it so that I could see what was going on, and I broke out my characters. I have full 6-piece classified gear sets for almost all the gear sets. It was hard to gather all of them, but over time I got it all. And I ran a mission with my classified striker. And the reason I did that was not because I just wanted to do it, but I wanted to kind of see if the same studio that actually made these classified gear sets were the same one that made the True Patriot, Ongoing Directive, and the Haywire. And to be very honest, I genuinely believe that they are trolling us, because that classified striker was so good. It felt good on the weapons, it felt good on the NPCs, it felt good on the healing, it felt good on everything. It just had the whole package. But let's go back and do a little bit of history, and let's see if truly there might be an inside joke somewhere. So remember when all these gear sets were released, before they got to their classified form, many of them were mediocre. In fact, it was only Striker and Sentry that were actually worthwhile. And over the course of the game, they changed them. You had to have a 5-piece bonus for Sentry or something silly like that. Final Measure made no sense. Predator's Mark was still weak. Hunter's Faith was a joke. These Lone Star was just lacking. But then over the course of the game, it started to become apparent that the thing about the developers is they excel at PvE, and they understood that PvE players just like to be strong. It doesn't matter how strong they can get. They want to obliterate everything. And a lot of people may think that that could make the content stale, but if you have a tough RNG, that can mitigate it, because everyone wants to get many people want to get the min-max build. So they started making these classified gear sets, and you should see the power of Striker, the power of Predator's Mark, the power of Nomad. Can anybody raise your hand if you remember when the 2-piece Nomad was 100% scavenging? Okay, that's how bad Nomad was. This was something where you almost could, nobody even talked about Nomad in the Division game. It was so useless, except maybe the health on kill, and Wids will probably run it just as an underdog build, to kind of show off his PvP skills. But the set was nonsense. Nomad was a stupid build, a 4-piece. And so looking at the transition of that, I think Massive is trying to play on one of their strengths, and they know how to do this very well. A lot of people are not seeing this from that business perspective. I'm looking at it directly like that, and that's how I want to see it, and I'm hoping that I'm seeing it the right way. And that is under promise, over deliver. These gear set attributes that we're seeing right now, these bonuses, they can all change. Massive can change them overnight. In fact, I believe they probably have the prototypes for what these gear sets are actually going to be able to unleash when they come out in their full form. I think they're just bringing these out just to keep us with our regular gear, finding out new variations of the talents on the builds in order for them to then drop these bonuses, and then everybody goes mad and is like, why did I not farm for these gear sets? Now, I may just be running on conspiracy theory, but to look at these gear sets and look at the gear sets from the past Division game, it is definitely a joke. I mean, maybe I'm just trying to console myself and call it a joke, but I feel like the community needs to look closely, and instead of write off the gear sets right now, yeah, you can farm them later on. You don't have to farm them right now. I think we need to be very cautious in our judgment, because if you look at the other gear sets and the way they were transformed, in fact, Reclaimer, very wonderful example, a gear set that was actually quite too powerful in a sense, but it kind of was fitting for the amount of health the NPCs had. And then for PvP, it was a mess. It was awesome in PvE, but it was bad in PvP. And so they changed it to a healer build, and it just excelled at that point. It just did its job, and it was the best healer 6-piece gear set that you could have in the game. There was no contender. I mean, yeah, you could run some Final Measure for that mitigation, but there was no need. Just run Reclaimer. In fact, they had to even tone Reclaimer down a little bit because it was too strong. They had to tone the Striker because it was too... In fact, they got to the point where they started nerfing the 6-piece classifieds in PvP and leaving them in PvE, because PvE kind of thrives on players actually feeling like they're progressing and getting strong. So right now, if you have the room and if you have the sets, farm them and keep them. there's something at play here that I feel like we probably don't know. And I think Massive wants to be able to unleash the true power of these gear sets in the future. I don't think these are this is a joke, guys. I mean, come on. Look at the bonuses. Look at Banshee. Even though Banshee could not meet Striker's potential damage, it was still a hard hitter when he came to the floor in PvP. I mean, look at all these. Look at Hunter's Faith. A lot of people are complaining about a one-shot sniper build. It's like they had amnesia from the Division 1, and Hunter's Faith was pretty much one-shotting people in PvP. That they had to kind of maybe, you know, tweak a few things here and there. But it always was, the developers wanted that strength to the players. And so I understand that, you know, they may have some reservations regarding PvP, it's not one of their biggest interests. I don't think it's one of, I wouldn't say it's a weakness, because I think they can do a PvP game. But I just don't think they intend to do a lot on PvP with the Division 2. I don't know why. I think it's very apparent. I don't know why they don't want to put too much emphasis on the PvP game. I think they want to copy other business models like Warframe, which doesn't have a huge PvP mode. I mean, when I played Warframe, I went into the PvP, and there were just a few people playing. There weren't a lot of people playing PvP in Warframe. Instead, in PvE, there were people that constantly and continue to play it. It's because these games want to follow an MMO style of, you know, game. And MMO style games usually thrive on co-op and PvE. And if you look at even Destiny, a lot of people say, you know, yeah, Destiny has a lot of PvP, but it seemed like in Destiny 2, Bungie just kind of messed up the Crucible. And so maybe that's what Massive wants to follow. Maybe they want to emphasize and put more of the emphasis on their PvE game. But the dropping of these gear sets, I think they are just a measured, I don't know. You share your thoughts with me. I want to know what you guys think, and think deep about this in a philosophical sense. Think deep about this in a historical sense, I mean to say, and look at the history of the gear sets in the Division game, the first Division game. Go back and log in if you have to. I mean, I downloaded my Division 1 again, and I just started looking at how powerful the weapon talents were. And the 6-piece, you know, bonuses all were. Every single aspect of it, almost the T. It was crazy. Just imagine how much damage and how much heavy fire Lone Star did in PvE. Very powerful gear set. And I used to make videos back then saying, you know, I hope Lone Star will get, you know, a buff. I used to just always wish, because it was one of my favorite gear sets. And they eventually did it. I was so excited when Predator's Mark got that heavy bleed. I know a lot of people didn't like it in PvP, but there was almost no PvE. I did not meet a PvE player that said, you know what, I hate Predator's Mark. Even though they said this thing is overpowered, they were never like, I hate it. PvE players just love being strong. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today. I don't know if if I actually tied this whole video up, but I guess it leaves more questions. Like I said in my gameplay video of Ongoing Directive, or in my review of it, sorry, I said these gear sets leave more questions than answers. And perhaps they probably have an intention to use it for the raids. Somewhere they're going to fit in. But let's not call Massive incompetent with these gear sets. I think there's something at play that we probably need to look at. So if you have the room and you have the time, farm them. If you don't worry, put them aside. Gear always drops anyways. And so if they change the bonuses, if they buff them, which I think they will, I can almost put $100 on it that they will buff these gear sets. If not, they are useless. Another thing too that I may, and I want to put this out there, I think they rushed them out. I don't think they were ready. I think Database was probably not fully ready, and the gear sets were not also fully ready, and so they rushed them out, which I think is an error of their part if they did that. But this is not the Massive that we know in designing gear sets. If you look at the history says otherwise. But that's my opinion. That's my take on this. And I just wanted to say, leave comments. Let's keep the conversation going, because something more is at play here. And I guess I'll see you in my next video. Gotta go. It's too long already. Peace.